My name is Tony Robbins. Shalom. My name is Tony Robinson of Restoration of Torah Ministries, and I'm happy to be here to do this first of hopefully many podcasts. Many being MANY, not MINI. And today, what I'm going to talk about is the woman of Revelation chapter 12. So I'm going to just read a little bit here to give you some context. Now, a great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Then, being with child, she cried out in labor and in pain to give birth. And another sign appeared in heaven. Behold, a great fiery red dragon having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 diadems on his heads. His tail drew a third of the stars of heaven and threw them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman as she was ready to give birth, to devour her child as soon as it was born. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. Then the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. And so most people, well, I can't say that. Many people believe that the woman is Mary, and there are a number of reasons why this is not Mary. And I know the primary reasons why people think this is Mary, and most people think that the male child is Jesus or Yeshua, and that's not so either. So, this is what we're going to do in this first podcast. The first podcast is just to explain why it's not Mary. Okay, why it's not Mary. Now, I have a series on the Book of Revelation, my first series, and I've shared a link with you. It's on my YouTube page. So I go in depth on these subjects, and you can listen to them there if you don't want to wait until I get to the next podcast. But today is simply going to be why the woman of Revelation 12 is not Mary, the mother of Yeshua. And so let's go ahead and let's take a peek at that. So Revelation 12:1, it talks about how a sign appeared in heaven, the woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet. That does not pertain to Mary, and the reason why is because Mary is never spoken of in such magnificent imagery as in Revelation 12:1. I mean, it says that it was a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and on her head a garland of 12 stars. Where nowhere in Scripture is Mary ever talking about in such glowing imagery. As a matter of fact, if we look at Luke 148, it says, "For he has regarded the lowly state of his maidservant." In fact, there are very few places in Scripture where the saints are ever spoken of in such glowing terms. Yeshua is spoken of in magnificent terms like that, but it's very rare that the Scripture is going to extol one of the saints in such a way. But I really believe that the idea that this is Mary is more of a relic of the Mary worship from Catholicism, and so, but she's never referred to in such magnificent imagery as that. Now, as I go through these reasons, I always start with my weakest reason first. So that's my weakest reason. So some of you may want to throw stones on that, throw stones at that. Go right ahead. But we're going to get into some meat as we continue to go here. So, how about another reason? The woman cannot be Mary because the devil did not try to devour Mary's child at birth. It was many, many months later, after Yeshua's birth, that the devil tried to kill Yeshua through Herod's decree. So, what we're looking at there is in Revelation 12, where it says, "And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child." And it says, as soon as it was born. So, in other words, the devil was right there waiting for this woman to deliver the child. So, in other words, the woman, as soon as that child is born, the devil is right there, and he's going to try to devour that child. Well, with Yeshua, we don't read anything in the Gospels about the devil standing before Mary and trying to devour Yeshua in any type of way at his birth. But what we do read about is the fact that months later after his birth, when the wise men came and they were asking Herod, when they were asking about the birth of Yeshua, we find that months later, that Herod sought to kill the baby, and it says that he had all of the babies in Bethlehem in the surrounding areas that were 2 years old and under killed. The reason why he chose 2 years old and under is because Yeshua had already been born. And so this great and we know prophetically that Herod's decree was satanically inspired. It was the devil who was trying to destroy Yeshua's life with that decree. But that happened months after Yeshua was born and not at his birth. So again, we have to remember that Revelation 12 says that the devil was standing right before the woman so that he could devour that child as soon as it was born. Okay. All right, how about another reason? According to Revelation 12:5, the man child was delivered, he was delivered at birth from the deadly schemes of the dragon by being caught up to God and his throne. Okay. In other words, the man child was caught up to God and his throne immediately after his birth. And so, in no way does this event fit Yeshua's birth or life. So, when we go back and when we read it, what happens here, it says the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to give birth to devour her child as soon as it was born. So the devil is there. So we're not, once this baby breaches and comes forth, there's not going to be much time. Now listen to what verse 5 says. She bore a male child who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron, and her child was caught up to God and his throne. And then it says the woman fled into the wilderness. In other words, it is the catching up to God and his throne that saves the male child immediately upon his birth. That was his deliverance. That is what saved him from being devoured by the devil. The fact that he was caught up to God and his throne as soon as it was born. You know, so some people say that Yeshua fulfilled this phrase, being caught up to God and his throne, at his ascension. But of course, that doesn't fit what the prophecy says here, because the prophecy says that it was at his birth that he was caught up, and Yeshua ascended some 33 years later. So again, the idea that the woman was Mary and that the child was Yeshua is not borne out by this passage. Here's another reason why the Greek word translated "caught up" in Revelation 12:5 is harpazo. And it's also used in Acts chapter 8, verse 39a. You remember when Philip went and preached to the Ethiopian, and they came up out of the water. In Acts 8:39, it says, now they came up out of the water, and the Spirit of the Lord caught Philip away. That word caught is harpazo, is harpazo. Harpazo means to take violently, to carry off by force, to seize or snatch out of the way. Okay. And so that's what happened to the male child in Genesis 12:5, and it makes sense because the devil was standing there to devour the child. And so as soon as the child was born, it was harpazoed away so that the devil couldn't get it. It was seized or snatched. This word is also used in 1 Thessalonians 4:17, where it says, then we who are alive and remain shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and thus shall we always be with the Lord. Again, the idea there is to carry off by force, to snatch out or to snatch away. And again, as I said, that was necessary in order to protect the child from the dragon. So again, this word harpazo that's used in Revelation 12:5 cannot be talking about Yeshua and his ascension, for we read, we can tell what the Greek word is that's used for his ascension. It is the word anabino, and it's used in John 20:17a. Yeshua said to her, speaking to Mary, do not cling to me, for I have not yet anabino, ascended to my Father. It's also used in Ephesians 4 now, 4:9. Now this he ascended, what does it mean but that also he first descended into the lower parts of the earth? So again, the word ascended is anabeno, and that just means it simply means to rise up, to go up, or to ascend. And that's the Greek word that actually is used in John chapter 20, referring to Yeshua saying that he had not yet ascended. So again, it's not harpazo, it wasn't a snatching away. Okay, so that's a very significant difference. How about Revelation 12:6? It says, then the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Okay, so after the child is caught up to God's throne, it says that it says that she fled into the wilderness. Well, again, when we go to the Gospels, do we read anything about Mary and Joseph fleeing into a wilderness immediately after Yeshua's birth? No, we don't. Okay, so we don't have a second witness to that. So the scripture is very clear in Revelation 12:6 that the woman fled into the wilderness. And so this can't refer to Mary because she didn't flee into a wilderness after giving to birth to Yeshua. We also don't read in the Gospels or anywhere else that Mary was nourished in a wilderness and specifically for 1,260 days. And we also don't read anywhere else in the Gospels or in the scripture where it says she was singled out for persecution by the dragon, as stated in Revelation 12. So we just don't read of that anywhere else in scripture. And so, again, I would suggest we would need a second witness before we could just, willy nilly say that the woman is Mary. So the Gospels are completely silent, and they don't give any hint at all that Mary fled into the wilderness and that God nourished her there for 1,260 days. And so these are some of the evidences that this is not Mary. And again, all I'm doing here is going through Revelation chapter 12 and looking specifically at what it says about this woman, and then seeing if that applied to anything that we've read about Mary. And as you can see, there are multiple instances where that is not the case, where it doesn't apply. All right, how about this one? The woman cannot refer to Mary because the seed of the woman, um, uh, in Revelation 12:17, it tells us that the woman has other children. Okay, it's not just the male child. So, if we focus on the male child, we can miss something here. So, um, it talks about the male child in Revelation 12:5, but let's go to the end of Revelation 12 in verse 17. It says, and the dragon was enraged with the woman. This is the same woman that we started the chapter off with. And he went to make war with the rest of her offspring. Okay. So this woman had other offspring, So, and this is not talking about Yeshua's brothers and sisters. This is talking about someone else. As a matter of fact, the rest of her offspring, or the remnant of her seed, as it says in the King James, are defined. It defines who they are. It says the rest of her offspring are, let's keep reading, those who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yeshua Messiah. So, in other words, the rest of her offspring that the devil goes to make war with are those who keep the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yeshua. So, are we to believe that Mary is the mother of all those who obey the commandments of God and have the testimony of Yeshua? I think not. So again, the woman of Revelation chapter 12 is not Mary and does not seem to fit that at all. You know, are we to believe that Mary gave birth to all the believers of the end times? Because that's what Revelation 12 is talking about. Okay. How about this? According to Revelation 1:19, it says, "Write those things which you have seen, the things which are, and the things which shall take place after this." So, in other words, John was commanded to write the things that he had seen. That's Revelation chapter 1, verses 1 through 20. Then he was told to write the things which are, and that conveniently breaks down to Revelation chapter 2 and 3. And then he's told to write down the things which shall take place after this, and then okay, to take place after this. So that's Revelation chapter 4 through chapter 22. In other words, the things that will take place after this will be future events. Now notice what it says in Revelation 4:1. John heard a voice saying, "Come up here, and I will show you things which must take place after this." Well, after this is after the letters to the assemblies in chapters 2 and 3. Therefore, we should understand that the events recorded in Revelation 4 through 22 are events of the future, which obviously occurred after Yeshua's lifetime on earth, because John wrote the book of Revelation possibly around 90 AD or so. And so in Revelation 119 is just an absolutely beautiful scripture which outlines, is one of many outlines of the book of Revelation. The things which you have seen, Revelation 1, 1 through 20, the things which are, Revelation 2 through 3, and the things which shall take place after this. That begins right in Revelation chapter 4, verse 1. So the things that are happening after chapter 4 are things that are after, they're definitely after Yeshua's time, and they're specifically after John's time also. All right, let's look at two more reasons. Here's Revelation 12, clearly informs us of the noteworthy events of the Great Tribulation. Okay, the casting of the devil to the earth, the persecution of the woman, and the remnant of her seed. All those two events are triggered. How are they triggered? They're triggered by the catching away of the male child. In other words, when the male child is caught, all right, so Satan, remember, Satan is waiting before the woman to devour her child. The child is born. However, God snatches the child up to heaven and his throne before the devil can get his hands on him. And so then the devil is cast out of heaven. And then it says that he goes to make war with the woman, and God protects the woman. And when he can't get to the woman, then it says that he goes and he tries to kill the remnant of her seed. Now it talks about how the woman is given a place in the wilderness for 1260 days. The point that I'm making here is that the snatching away of, or the catching away, the harpazo of the male child is the event that triggers the Great Tribulation. It is the event that triggers the Great Tribulation, where Satan is cast down to the earth, and then he starts the great persecution of the woman and the remnant of her seed, and we have the time period of 1260 days that begins to count. Okay, and then the last reason is because of the chiastic nature of chapter 12. The chiastic nature does not support the notion that the woman is Mary. Now, if you're not a Restoration of Torah Ministries junkie, You may not know what a chiastic structure is, but basically it is a thematic pattern which forms the basis of how biblical narratives are written. So, for instance, one of the reasons why the book of Revelation is hard to understand is because it's not written solely in chronological order. It's actually written in thematic order, in a thematic pattern, and specifically, chapter 12 is written in a pattern itself, where there will be certain themes in the first half of the story of Revelation 12 that will repeat in the second half of Revelation 12 in reverse order. And so, what I want to look at is verses 6 and verses 14, because those are the two verses that are thematically connected to each other. So Revelation 12:6 says, the woman fled into the wilderness where she has a place prepared by God that they should feed her there 1,260 days. Well, that matches thematically in the chiastic structure of chapter 12 with Revelation 12:14, where it says, but the woman was given wings of a great eagle that she might fly into the wilderness to her place where she is nourished for a time, times and a half time from the presence of the surface serpent. So, as you can see, the theme of the woman fleeing into the wilderness and being there for 1,260 days, that theme in the first half of the story is repeated in the second half of the story, where it talks about how the woman was given the wings of a great eagle, that she would be nourished in the wilderness for time, times and a half time. Now, what I want to say is that this is a perfect example of how the Bible is written in thematic patterns. And so this theme in the first half is repeating in the second half. But here's the most important point. The most important point is that both events are the same event. It's not like it's not like Revelation 12:6 is the woman fleeing into the wilderness at some time at some early time, and then when we get to Revelation 12:14, this is some second event or a separate event of the woman fleeing into the wilderness for the same period of time. No, this is one. This is one event. It's being spoken of twice because chapter 12 is written in a pattern. And what happens in the first half repeats in the second half. And so, in other words, what's happening in Revelation 12:6, where some people say, oh, well, that woman is Mary. Well, that's this event in Revelation 12:6 is the same thing that happens in Revelation 12:14. It's the exact same event. And so it can't be Mary because we all know that what's happening in Revelation 14 through 17, those are end time events. That's book of Revelation end time events. So again, it's not possible for that to refer to Mary. Okay, so that's basically what I wanted to say today on this first podcast. So we're going to share some more podcasts with you, and so we'll continue to look specifically at the Book of Revelation. This first podcast, just in summary, is just to give you some scriptural evidence to prove that the woman of Revelation chapter 12 is not Mary. Okay, the woman is not Mary, and therefore that male child is not Yeshua. The male child is someone else. Or I might tease you and just say that it is. Well, I won't tease you guys. But as I said, if you want to hear more about this, you can go to my YouTube channel. The link is below. You can go to the YouTube channel. I've got about 8 hours of videos there. They're all riveting and you will enjoy them. So may Adonai bless you. And my prayer for you is the same that I pray for myself. And it is Psalm 119, verse 18, I believe it is, where it says, open thou mine eyes that I may behold wondrous things from your Torah. Open thou mine eyes that I may behold wondrous things from your Torah. May Adonai bless you. May Adonai keep you. And I hope that the materials, the reading materials, the videos, and the podcast from Restoration of Torah Ministries is a blessing to you. Hang in there. Continue to stay with me. We'll see you next time. Shalom. Shalom.